Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for the, oh, there you are. Thank you so much for attending. It's great to be here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about AI governance, or if I need to be more specific, it's more about operationalizing AI governance, translating it from a general framework to an actionable tool. So I'll just take you a little bit back in time. This is 2021, 22. Which, and for the next couple of years, we were all getting used to AI and its implications, Gen AI and its implications. And I call it the Wild West mode. Why? Because everyone was trying to figure out, okay, how can I use this thing? Does it even work? Like, how do I evaluate it? What can I solve? What problems can I solve? So there we saw a little bit of promise. So organizations, companies, teams, decided to invest in it and invested in an arms race effectively, where we try to scale it, make it work for more users with lower latencies. We try to make it more capable, bigger models, more capable models, and we try to make it more accessible, right? People don't need to code anymore to be able to implement fairly sophisticated AI solutions. And then we have this paradox where everything is working in our favor, like everyone has noted today. Like, technology is getting there, computational power is increasing substantially, complexity of models is also increasing exponentially, but still, it feels like we're kind of in a plateau where the value is not proportional to the developments. And one can blame the technology, sure, but I kind of feel that it's a matter of design. And we're at this inflection point where we need to think a little bit about how we deploy AI and what it means to be AI embedded. And we need to give the wheel to the business leaders, the stakeholders, and give them tools to be able to set goals, evaluate, monitor, adjust, and scale AI, with the centerpiece not being the model, the centerpiece being the outcome. So this is, in my mind, what governance is. And again, going a little bit back in time, how did AI development or the life cycle of an AI model look like back in 21, 22, 23? You have the AI experts of the company who are like, okay, let's do something cool with AI. Typically, it's like an HR chatbot, it's a customer service chatbot, it's some document intelligence. All right, we have a concept, we collect some data, we develop it, we evaluate it, and we deploy it, and we hope for the best. And now here we are in 2025, looking back and trying to understand, okay, there are some quick wins, but the payback is not there. Most of my pilots have failed. The ROI is unclear or small, and overall a feeling of unrealized potential that has been a recurring theme in these conversations. And my initial reaction to this is like, look at this, what did you expect, right? You started with a few use cases that a few of your AI experts came up with. You didn't have a proper life cycle and evaluation framework, and you expected your organization to be AI first by 2025. This wouldn't work. So you need to take AI governance a little bit more seriously and be a little more systematic about it. So essentially, if you want, the ideal version of an AI governance framework would be, you have a flood of AI use cases from your organization because you did all your adoption, your change management, you did your upskilling, and now the organization has appetite for use cases, but you don't have a clue what to prioritize and how to get them through the pipeline, right? So if you wanted to do this, you would have to go from raw concept to an actual product design, think the concept through, and then you have to set a proper use case framework that is aligned with the organization's policies, procedures, priorities. Once some of the use cases go through the use case intake process, that's when you start thinking about data and integrating with the organization data layer. You start development. And now, because it's Gen AI and not classical AI, you kind of have to think about what evaluation means, right? In traditional technology, how did you think about evaluation? Is the latency small enough? And does it work most of the time? This is pretty much what you were thinking about. But suddenly you have so many more guardrails to follow, so many more soft criteria to evaluate the Gen AI model on. So evaluation is becoming both a technical problem and a business problem. And then you go to deployment, and from then on, it's this everlasting loop of monitoring, compliance, tuning, retraining, and back again. Periodic reviews and closing the loop between the technical teams and the business teams. And that's what defines an AI asset, this everlasting loop of improvements, training, guardrail, checking, and monitoring. All right, so now let's look at this. It's a lot more complicated than it looked before. Even engineers in the room, and I'm seeing a few from PwC here, haven't dealt with such complicated workflows, right? The only people that may have seen workflows like this are those who were working on product design and engineering. So that suddenly now we're requesting a whole organization to become a product design engine in order for this AI experiment to be successful. And in order to understand what it takes to get to a governance model like this, let's just focus on one of the boxes, the use case intake process, and think about what it entails from an organizational point of view. So usually when we think about the organization, it's an umbrella term, but actually here in the use case intake process, it's a player in this framework, right? Organization, like Andreas before mentioned, is the one who is setting the goals and defines the risk appetite of the company. Let's stay here for a second. What are the goals? What are possible goals? Now, if you're a growth-minded company or if you care about pumping up your stock price right now, what would you do? You would say AI everywhere. Let's bombard the organization with AI and cross our fingers and hope for the best. That's a valid goal. Do I agree with it? We can discuss, but that's a valid goal. Other companies, other organizations that have very thin margins, all they want to do is increase efficiency, cut costs, or work on the top line. That's also a valid goal. Also, companies have different risk appetites, different risk levels that they're comfortable with. So in order to be able to help the stakeholders decide where they want to be in this Pareto frontier of value and risk, you need to be able to quantify risk, and that's not easy in the AI space. All right, so that's one of the players. Then you have the business owner, the person who's trying to make a case for the use case. And in order to do this properly, we have to think about so many different things. We have to think about cost savings, revenue impact, expected adoption of the tool. We have to think about brand implications, especially if this is a customer-facing experience, a customer-facing product. And we have to think about accuracy and other operational requirements, all right? And this is just the business side of things in order to start making a case for an AI use case. Then you have the technical team who has to be there and say, okay, is this even feasible given the technology and the infrastructure? Do we have enough data to support your request? Do we actually build it in-house? Do we get a vendor? Do we get one of the off-the-shelf tools? And then to complete the ecosystem, you have all the risk people and the legal people who have to evaluate regulatory risk, cyber risk, data, brand, model risk, operational risks. So it became from this startup-y feeling exercise in the company where we're trying a POC to this very complicated workflow of all these parts of the company working together in order to be able to quantify the value added and the risk from a typical use case. All right, and now you will ask me, how do you expect me? This is an organization that has been working in a very traditional way over the past, let's say, 15 years, and you expect me to implement something like this. And this is where operationalizing this comes in play, right? Technical people and risk people are used to workflows like that, or hopefully they're used to workflows like that. But here the business component, the business sponsor, and the business owner is a vital part of this loop. How do we add them in this process without having to train them for 4 years to be able to speak a technical language? So as part of the governance suite that we are creating with the AI team at PwC, if only there was a technology that could serve as a catalyst to make this happen fast. So what we're doing is we're building agents that can actually help the business user navigate this fairly complicated process in a very simple way. For example, here I am, I'm a business user. I have this idea for processing invoice data from PDFs into Excel. That saves the engineering team about 3 days of reviewing. Why? Because it tells the user, okay, go to Copilot, try this prompt and report back. But then when the user comes up with a more sophisticated use case, which is, can you do legal letter summarization? Immediately you can identify this as a very high risk for the organization application. Sure, you can do it in Copilot and the agent gives a hint at the prompt, but it should be escalated as a proper use case. And instead of going through endless PowerPoints and Excel sheets on trying to identify the value of doing something like this, the agent itself is collecting the information from the user, like how many team members are going to use this, how much time do you expect to save, give me a ballpark of adoption, tell me how many contracts you review every day. Once you collect this information in a fairly engaging way, I'm not saying it's the most interesting thing to do, but it has to be part of the process anyway, then this immediately will get escalated to the business owner, to the AI ambassador. And then the AI ambassador can start focusing on the things that matter more, like asking about the risks that are involved with this process, do a sanity check on the ROI estimates of the sponsor, and ask other hidden costs and benefits that could come from implementing this AI use case. So now you see that you are streamlining the operationalization of the framework that we talked about in a fairly, I wouldn't say simple, but a much simpler way. And you are collecting data that are critical for the decision that's about to happen next. And what's a decision? Okay, now I have 300 use cases. I escalate them to the technical team where we have workflows. Most of the companies have frameworks and workflows to evaluate risk and evaluate technical effort, feasibility, build versus buy. And what would this lead you to? It would lead you to a very nice inventory of use cases where you have all the data that you need, or at least most of the data that you need to be able to make an educated guess. Are you a company that's all about embedding AI everywhere to pump out your stock price? Only look at the adoption column. Are you a company that cares about micro optimizations on your margin because you are a retailer and it's a thin margin? Fine, only look at the cost column, right? Are you a very risk-aware company? For example, PwC, a lot of PwC people are here, and risk is all you care about, that's totally fine. Then you can focus on your risk column and make an educated guess. On top of that, because there is AI in the loop, you can get some core insights about what really matters for your organization. For example, do some pretty basic analytics and NLP to identify, look, out of all these cases, in 11 of them, it boils down to an intent classification API. So I build one use case and I serve 11 requests, and I have a very concrete way of quantifying value. Also, because you were, through the process, you identified which data sources within the company you wanted to connect to, now you know how to prioritize which of the data components you need to make sure are up to speed and up to date and high quality in order to serve your AI use cases. So this approach is serving a few different boxes in this AI use case trajectory and journey. All right, so now, fine, some of the use cases will be promoted into the pipeline. We are all happy with the choices that we made. We start the deployment. We have something in production. There is a shitload of things that you need to keep track of while you are monitoring this process. So typically in machine learning, and Andreas talked about it before, we knew how to quantify accuracy, right? It's how much error do I make in my predictions. This is not at all the case with Gen AI. This is a very case-specific accuracy that you need to define. There are tools out there that quantify accuracy, but you need to be aware of them and use them. And then you have this extra set of constraints, the regulatory constraints, like explainability, interpretability, fairness, that you also need to quantify and monitor. Then you need to check, am I satisfying the operational requirements that the sponsor asked me to? Have I incorporated the human in the loop properly at key milestones of this process? Am I complying with the guidelines that were set to me either by the regulator or by the business sponsor? And to continue this, to make it even worse, am I capturing the model drift and the data drift? The world is changing, and therefore your model also has to change. If you put it up there and forget about it, it's going to fail. How about ROI? You need to keep constantly monitor the KPIs that you set for yourself when developing your use case. You need to monitor the infrastructure and make sure it delivers to the promises that you gave to the organization and the sponsor. Are you thinking about how to put the human back in the loop in terms of the success, the adoption, and the use of this tool? What's the point of developing technology if no one is going to use it? All of this has to be in one place, in one dashboard, if you want to truly be an AI first or an AI embedded or whatever cool term there is right now about AI in organizations, right? And you should not forget about your customer. If you don't keep track of your customer sentiment and how they react to your chatbots, you have failed. Even if your revenue is going up and the experience is going down, you are playing the long game here, and you need to be able to measure it. So essentially what we're thinking when we're still in the design, in the development phase for this, so any feedback would be very useful, is like one place where you can capture all these metrics, connecting to different data sources and different capabilities, from measuring accuracy through LLMs as a judge all the way to adoption training, in order to be able to monitor this AI ecosystem. And with just a couple of minutes left, I'm gonna play my academic part here. I'm removing the applied hat for a second. And this is an analogy that I love, but it is stolen, but I still love the analogy, and this is it. So we had this discussion today, and there were some statements that AI is essentially RPA on steroids. It is intelligent RPA, which is a fair statement, but I'll make the following argument. So, let's think about the canal-based economy that was the state of the art for transporting goods from A to B before the railroad, right? So canals were a very constrained ecosystem. You can go from A to B, but you cannot go from B to A, one. Also, you were not really sure when you would make it to your destination. So you would give a time frame of like a month. So hopefully sometime in January, I'm gonna be there and deliver the goods. And then you have railroad, and I'm pretty sure at the time people were having the discussion, okay, those are canals on steroids. And I kind of feel that the history showed that it's the opposite. The contribution of the railroad was not the fact that you could go from A to B. It was the fact that you had to redefine and reinvent what the economy looks like. You had to redefine what operations look like. You have to start thinking about supply chains, because things are now happening fast. We're talking about day time scale instead of week time scale. And you also started thinking about national markets or even global markets, while until then it was only local markets. So essentially we had to redefine the way business is done, the way society is structured, just because of this technological breakthrough. So in my mind, and I'm not saying that governance is everything, but governance is an opportunity for introspection, for the organization to kind of like reconsider how you do business. And it's an opportunity for the markets to reconsider themselves, whether this is the labor market, whether this is a financial market. We should take this opportunity. And right on time, I'd like to thank you for your attention.